Okay, so the movie that we are discussing on Femtertainment Friday today is Kamla. Kamla is a Hindi movie from 1985. It was directed by Jagmohan Mundra, and the star cast here is again Shabana, Azmi, and Deepti Naval, and there's a guy as well, Mark Zubair, in the lead roles. Okay. Kamla is the name of the character played by Deepti Naval. Typically, if you read the descriptions, the movie says it's about an investigative journalist who's done an expose on the trade of human flesh. Okay, so in India, due to the extreme poverty, humans have been sold like property, like animals, for long, and despite slavery being officially abolished all over the world and in India, humans are still sold. And when you are poor, you are like totally screwed. When you are a poor woman, you are screwed twice, because then when you're a woman, things are even worse for you. So this movie from the 1985, imagine, before I was born, this movie from 1985 covers an expose an investigative journalist did. Actually, it was for real. The guy is real, and it turns out he did this investigative expose on human flesh trade, and there was a lot of news about it in the Indian Express, and he presented a woman who he had actually purchased for 20,000 Indian rupees, which is, I don't know, like 20 pounds or something, 200 pounds or something, whatever. So the movie is based around that, but you might think that, whoa, it would be something like an investigative journalist who is, trying to raise the voice of poor people and try to abolish slavery, and it is about empowerment and all this, but it's not. Okay, on the surface it looks like it is, but it's not, and let me tell you how. The movie starts with this guy whose name is Jai Singh Jadhav, the character Mark is playing. Okay, so this guy is buying a woman in a small village. Okay, so he buys the one that no one else want to buy. He buys this woman and he brings her to the town, to a city life, the big bungalow and cars and everything. It's a posh modern colony house. Okay, so you see that while there's space on the tonga, the horse ride, the woman is barefoot and she is running behind for miles. He doesn't offer her a place to sit next to him in the tonga. So from here, the casting is going on, there's a song played in the background, and from here you get to see that despite him purchasing a woman for the purpose of doing an expose for their rights, he actually internally doesn't give a damn about their rights, because if he did, he would have offered her a place in the tonga out of decency, out of humanity, but it doesn't. And this is how it gets interesting, how I don't know how many people actually do this, but how people, in the name of activism, in the name of standing up for the rights of the poor people, are actually just doing nothing but progressing their own career for name, fame, game, all this. But internally, they don't give a monkey about slavery or human rights or flesh trade or whatever. Okay. So the story starts with this thing that she's running behind the carriage, and he's taking her to the city. Now, when he comes to the city and he brings this woman, there's a wife, posh, modern, educated woman, the character played by Shabana, Azmi. And there's an old man in the house. The old man is the uncle of his wife, Shabana Azmi's uncle. And there is who's actually visiting them for a while. And there is another servant in the house who's a cook and cleaning lady and stuff. Her name is Kamla as well. And then there's the driver and the chauffeur and all that. The house is a fleet of servants. Okay, no kids, husband, wife, the uncle visiting, and the servants. Okay. So when he's around, when he comes to the house, the wife is asking him, where were you and all this. She's all nice, polite, giggly around him. but he doesn't disclose where he was. He doesn't want to say what he was doing and all this. He barely gives out any details. Then the story moves on, and you see these two characters kind of in a tiff over his work schedule. He's always working, he's busy, and whatever she says, he is absolutely arrogant as he's a mean bastard to her and doesn't give her any respect at all. Okay, this goes on, and then the guy who wants to do an expose, now the woman is here, he wants to present her at a press conference because apparently the Indian government needs proof. Okay, just because you say as an investigative journalist that there is flesh trade going on, they don't believe you. They want you to come with evidence. So he buys this woman, he presents her at the press conference. Now the scene where he takes her to the press conference is amazing because this woman is barely clothed. She has no shoes or anything on her feet. And when he's trying to take her to the press conference, his wife and the other woman, they try to give her some clothes and stuff so she wouldn't be embarrassed. I mean, come on, you are going to a big city life and you are taken in your worst clothes, in your worst things. So first he tries to talk to her and tell her that we are going to this place, there will be people asking you a lot of questions, they'll ask. So she's like, oh really, what would they ask me? She's scared, she's panicking, of course. So she says, okay, what are they going to ask me? So he says that nothing about you, what do you do, what's your life like, what do you eat, what do you wear, where do you go. And the poor woman is so embarrassed. She said, now I don't have anything to wear and I don't have any food in my house. Do I really need to tell them all this? Please just you go and let me be. She tries her life to save herself from going over there, but then he in the end plays the master card. I'm your master, you're my slave. My order is you are coming with me to this place and that's how I want. And then when he sees that later on his wife and the other lady in the house, they have given her fresh clothes, he's mad at everyone because he wants her to look pathetic and dirty because that would, give more of a sensation to his case. So he doesn't care about humanity. He doesn't care about parading the woman half naked on the streets. He doesn't care about all that. All he cares is presenting his case. Okay. Now the next scene is you see that he's taking the woman to this conference and they come out of that ambassador car that was famous in those times. I don't know, I think it still is in India. He brings her out and the people are gawking at her. Obviously it's journalists, so imagine how many photographs and cameras and questions and everything. He's parading her like a circus donkey, and they are taking pictures, they're asking weird questions and things, and they're laughing at her, they're making fun of her, they're doing every possible mean thing you can that you wouldn't expect to be done in a human rights activist speech or conference, whatever. The last thing you would want in a human rights conference is someone being paraded or humiliated. But that's what it is. Now they return back to the home. The husband Jai Singh is absolutely drunk, and he brings another colleague of his home, and they start talking and stuff. Now the woman, the slave, the Kamla woman, is obviously pretty scared, so she goes straight to her room. Now Jai Singh's wife and the uncle, they happen to sit and talk. The guys are drunk, but they're really excited. This happened in a conference and that happened. They start to brag out about how great he's been and how he's changing the world and he's raising his voice for the poor and all this. And then the other drunk guy, his colleague, he starts to disclose the uncomfortable questions that people asked and made fun of her. And he says that the journalist started asking, so how many men have you slept with? If this is your master, have you slept with him? How was your experience? The questions that would humiliate a poor slave, a woman who's got no idea about city life or about whatever they're saying. The poor woman is just sitting there on the floor smiling and thinking, she doesn't know that she's being made fun of, and she's just looking at them and smiling, and she's scared and humiliated at the same time when they're saying mean things to her. And this all keeps happening, and the guy who brought her there to talk about flesh trade, he has absolutely no concern about her feelings. All he cares about is progressing his career, presenting his case, making a big stand in front of the government and the newspapers and all that, and he doesn't give a monkey about her feelings, about humiliating her. Okay. This keeps happening. His wife is really upset, and he and the old man who's visiting with them, he asks, so it's fun it's okay if you make fun of her? And he says that, apart from the political conferences, if it's not about politics, then we do make fun of her, so fun of things. So the old man says, and this was because it was not political enough, it's not important, it's funny to you that a woman has been sold and purchased out of this flesh trade thing. And then he starts saying nasty things because he's already drunk. Okay. So anyways, the wife breaks their fight and takes him up to his bedroom, and she's really upset and all this, and she apologizes, and the old man apologizes, and he just sits off. Now, when she goes to her room, the guy, her husband, he tries to forcefully have sex with her. So he tries to rape her, and then she feels like really bad. She's in a really bad mood. She pushes him off, and she gets out of the room because she knows if she stays, she's gonna be raped. She goes out of the room, and she's out in the, porch or something. And the slave woman, Kamla, she appears, and these two start to talk. So Kamla is like curious. She's asking questions like, how is this house so big? And even the king in my village doesn't have a house as big, and this and that. The poor innocent questions of someone who's never been in a city, who's never seen any food or clothes, even forget about having a house. So she's asking all these questions, and she asks if they have any children, and she says that no, we don't have any, and this and that. And then after a few moments, she asks something that completely moves and shakes Shabana Azmi to her core. She asks her, how much did he pay for you? And then Shabana Azmi, who's an educated, English-speaking, modern, posh, classic, wealthy housewife, she looks at the poor slave woman and she says, What did you ask me? And then she says that, how much did he pay for you? Because in her poor village brain, every woman is being purchased. There is no woman in the world who's not a slave. In her world, in her perspective, every woman is a slave, and he is the master. Man is the master who pays for you. Whoever is paying for you is your master. So she is obviously shocked, and when she overcomes that shock, she says, he paid 700 for me. And then the poor slave woman is extremely shocked because he paid 200 for her, for this one. And she said, oh my God, he paid 700 for you and you cannot even bear children. How upset he might be. This is such a loss for him. And in her mind now, for someone who's educated and for someone who knows how the world works and human rights and women's rights works, now you see that in her mind there's no difference, absolutely no difference between a woman and a chicken or a bullock or a goat. Because you buy animals and women to bear children so that you can either employ them or make use of them somehow, or make something out of them, make money out of them. So the role of a man in the world is that of a master, and the role of women and animals is equal, to serve the master. So this shocking revelation comes, and then she says that, you know what, I have an idea. And she asks, what's that? She said, I can work like a donkey day to night, night to day, and all this, and I can bear children and everything as well, but there's only one thing that I cannot do that's really hard. And she asked, what's that? She said, I cannot go to these big places and parties, and I don't have any clothes, I cannot act, and I don't know how to read and write. So let's serve our master in a nice way. You take care of the good things, the partying and the going out and all the glamorous things. You do all that and take care of his business and stuff, and I will take care of the hard things, the the working in the fields and all the household chores and all this. I mean, when you listen to her dialogues, when you hear her say all these things, you're just gonna think, oh my god, seriously, how innocent, how poor, what is the life of a person like this? Anyway, the night has been really, really heavy on Shabana Azmi, and then as the night passes by, the next morning, despite him forcing himself upon her, despite him trying to rape her, she's the one who goes and apologizes, and he's acting, oh, I'll have my tea myself, why are you bothered? And he's mad at her, he's not talking to her, and he says that I am your master, I own you, when I say something you have to do it, that's your duty, that's what you're supposed to do. So she apologizes in the morning, and he's still like, get lost, leave me alone, and he still have a sulking face, and he's still being rude to her. She cries and goes away. Now the worst thing happens. You might think that she and the other woman, the slave woman, they have found something in common, but actually now he's taking her away. And when she asks, where are you taking her away? And then he has the same question, who the hell are you? Who the fuck are you? Why the fuck do you want to know? He has absolutely no concern, no humanity, no empathy in himself, and he doesn't expect anyone else to have empathy for anyone else. And then he finally reveals that he is taking her to a women's organization so that he doesn't fall in trouble and all this. And when she fights for her, she says that why can't she live in our house like the other servant? Let her be here. Don't take her to an unknown place. We don't know what's going to happen to her. But then obviously he's not going to listen. He's an arrogant ass. So he takes her away. Now, when he takes her away, they put her in a Nari ashram, that's a women's shelter and stuff. And then you see different things happening with this guy. He is getting more and more recognition. There's talk now. Obviously, in India, when you try to reveal some truth or raise a alarm about anything, be it flesh trade, be it human trafficking, be it some kind of corrupt practice, brewing the alcohol, any illegal thing you try to ring a bell on, you are the one who will fall in trouble, because in India these things are part of the government, because there are always police involved, there are always local inspectors involved, they are taking money from it, there are more often than not there are ministers involved. And this is the reason why when you raise voice on some issue, it doesn't go much far, because the ministers are always involved. Okay, corruption rates are high, and this is from 1985, but it's still the same situation. Not much has changed. So this guy is invited to some parties, and there he's bragging about how great his profession is, and he's raising his voice on the challenges of human life and human issues and this and that. And then in the house there is this wife who's sad and upset, and to come to this party, he begs his wife to go. He says on the phone, there's a party in the night, you get ready. He doesn't ask, he's no concern if she wants to go or not. And then when he comes home, he says, let's go and all this. And she says, I'm not gonna go. I just don't want to. They have a fight over there again. She says that I'm not your slave anymore and this and that. And he fucks off angrily to the party anyways. The next scene is really interesting, because now you see this woman, his wife, she is packing her bags and stuff. So the old man who's living with them, he tries to ask her, where are you going and all this. She says that I am not his slave, and I don't want to be anymore. And he asks why, what's wrong, and this and that. She says that he is absolutely arrogant and he treats me like a slave, because when you're going out of the house, you don't tell your shoes, you don't tell a chair, you don't tell a table that you're going out, and he treats me just the same as his shoe or a chair or a table. There's absolutely no difference. He treats me equally bad, and I cannot take this anymore. And then when she's trying to explain how this man has been using her, the old guy, who until now I thought was talking some sense, he says that he is slave of his own pride, because this is how our modern society is. They tell the man that you are the master, but he's actually the thing about being a master is really deceitful, because actually he's slave of his own pride. The society puts him in order of everything, tells him that he's the dictator of his house and the society, and then he becomes arrogant ass, and then he becomes a slave of his pride. This is why he's acting like this, but he really loves you. And then she says, even if he loves me when he want to, the way he want to, and there is no room for what I want, how I want, if I want it or not. There's absolutely no room for that. So I don't find this marriage to be going anywhere. And then as this is happening, there's something really, really bad happening with the guy. Okay, so again, I promise to give no spoilers about what happens in the end of the movie, so I'm not gonna tell you about what exactly happens. But then the movie ends on a note that will really leave you thinking about how slavery works, and how despite we, English speaking modern society, high class traveling people, how we are all slaves to some or the other thing, whether it is our jobs, whether it is our lives, whether it is other people's perceptions of us, but people are slaves somehow. The one thing that I don't know, I'm a bit uncomfortable with is that yes, slavery is a huge issue, but you cannot compare a slavery of one's desires or pride to domestic violence or the way marital life works. And if people accepted marital life as slavery, then I'm sorry, but I would rather prefer to get nailed on the head but have a marriage where I have to be a slave. So I don't think that marriage should be slavery, and we should accept marriage as being slaves of each other or to each other, because marriage should be about love. And this is the one thing where you shouldn't be compromising with, because marriage is not a one-day deal, guys. You gotta live with this person for the rest of your life, and if you are his slave or he is your slave, this is your expectation, then this is not gonna work. And I mean, how could you even compare marriage to slavery and say this is okay? Even if this is something that's going on, you should be saying that this is not okay. You should be, going against it rather than defending it and saying, yeah, marriage is like slavery. And most importantly, the guy in the end compares the slavery of the slave woman Kamla, the slavery of his wife, who's supposed to treat him like a master and do all the duties despite her being equally able in all ways, and the slavery of this man to his own ambitions and careers. These are all completely different things, because you see, the woman, Kamla woman, she is a slave because she has no money, she has no family, no parents, no one to feed her, no education, she has nothing, she is absolutely nothing. She is a slave because of that, economically. This woman, the wife, who's in this domestic violence kind of condition, she is a slave despite being financially and socially and everything fulfilled. She is a slave because she is following the society, because society tells her you have to be a wife, you have to be chaste, you have to follow your husband. Okay, so her slavery is not the same as the slavery of that woman, because she doesn't even have food, but this one has. And when you have food, you have more choices. This is what I believe in life, guys. When you have food and bed, you have choices, you have privileges, and you cannot compare your life in any way or means to the life of a poor person who's on the street. You cannot do that. You should admit your privilege. This thing. Now, despite the director comparing their slaveries, the slavery of the guy to his ambitions and his pride is absolutely freaking ridiculous, and it's absolutely different from the slavery of those two women, because he is not financially or economically unable to make a living. He has tons of money, a shit ton of money he has. Second, if he kicks his wife, he's not the one who's have to answer the questions of the society. Like, the woman is a slave because she has to answer the question of the society. She has to take the bullet of a bad marriage. But no one in India, still in this day and age, it's fucking 1985 and this is fucking 2017, and there's still no difference. Women are being blamed. I know a woman who divorced her husband, and still people go and ask her, hey, why did your husband kick you out of his house? Why did he leave you? And she says, you know what? I left him because he was fucking around. He was sleeping with another woman. And still people just can't admit the idea that a woman can leave a man. Okay? So just because you have a certain built up pride that the fucking society built up for you, and you are slave to that, it's absolutely not the same as a woman who's in a bad marriage because she is going to be questioned, or a woman who's lying on the street who has barely any clothes to cover herself. Okay, so this is something that I had problem with in the end, but I think the movie is something you should really, really watch and get to see the perspective of the different lives that are that are intertwined in this movie, and how exactly the life of these people turn out to be in the end. So this is something you should really watch.